She's your problem. You deal with her. That's what my uncle whispered to my mother when I spilled orange juice on the carpet at a family gathering. I was 7, and those words hit harder than the slap I got afterward. My name is Claire Donovan, and for most of my life, I thought something was wrong with me, because that's what they made me believe, that I was the root of the tension, the reason my mom was always anxious, the reason my dad barely spoke to me, the reason family gatherings were cold, even in July. They called me her shadow, her responsibility, her mistake. But the truth wasn't about spilled juice. It wasn't even about me, and I only uncovered it the day I took a $59 DNA test on a dare from my roommate, and the results nearly set fire to everything I thought I knew. Growing up in our house meant one thing: keep your voice down and your head lower. My father, Donald, was a man of few words, but when he did speak, it was usually to point out what I was doing wrong. Stop slouching, comb your hair. You're embarrassing your mother. My mother, Lorraine, would just sit quietly. Sometimes she'd glance at me with tired eyes. Not hateful, but distant, like she didn't know what to do with me. School was my only escape. I was the girl who stayed late in the library, the one who volunteered for extra credit. Not because I was ambitious, but because home never felt like home. And holidays, they were the worst. Everyone from my father's side would gather. My uncles, my aunts, their perfect kids. And there I was, the ghost at the table. No one sat beside me. No one asked me how school was. No one even looked me in the eye. I was her problem, a label they didn't even try to hide. By the time I was 16, I stopped asking questions. Stopped asking why I looked nothing like my dad, why my hair was dark while his was red, why my eyes were wide like mom's, but held a fear I couldn't explain. The answer was always the same: God makes us all different. Or worse, be grateful you even have a family. So I smiled, I stayed quiet, and I tried to forget that I felt like a stranger in every family photo. But truth has a funny way of whispering louder over time. And on my 24th birthday, my roommate Sarah handed me a DNA kit with a wink. "Let's see how Italian you really are," she joked. I laughed, spat into the tube, and mailed it off, expecting a fun distraction. I had no idea what was coming. The results came in 3 weeks later. I was in the middle of folding laundry when the email pinged. "Your ancestry results are ready." I clicked, scanned, and blinked. Then blinked again. My results said I was 48% Irish. The rest a mix of Eastern European and something else I'd never heard of. Confused? Not really. Until I scrolled down and saw this line: "No paternal match available." What? I clicked again. No match. No trace of my father, Donald Donovan, anywhere in the database. None of his siblings, none of their kids, no one. That's when it hit me. The man I had called Dad for 24 years wasn't biologically related to me. And I don't mean he wasn't listed. I mean he wasn't even close. Not a third cousin, not a distant match, nothing. I stared at the screen for minutes, heartbeat loud, louder. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called my mother. She picked up on the third ring. "Claire, everything okay?" I didn't say hi. I didn't say Happy Tuesday. I said, "Why isn't Dad showing up in my DNA test?" There was a long pause, too long. Then a small, sharp inhale. "What test?" I told her the name, told her the results. Silence. "Your father is your father. That's all that matters." "That's all that matters?" I pushed. I asked again, and finally, she whispered, "We don't talk about that." Click. She hung up. I stood there, phone still pressed to my cheek. Like maybe if I stayed frozen, time would rewind. But it didn't. Instead, something inside me cracked open, and it wasn't confusion. It was relief. Because suddenly, all those years of being treated like an outsider made sense. The looks, the coldness, the whispered insults. They didn't hate me for who I was. They hated me for what I reminded them of. That night, I opened every family photo I had, every framed portrait, every dusty album, and I looked again with new eyes. Eyes that asked, what don't I know and who's been hiding it? What came next was a truth darker than I was ready for, and it started with a folded piece of paper buried at the bottom of my mother's old jewelry box. And next morning, I drove 2 hours to my childhood home. My mother didn't know I was coming, and I didn't care. I still had the key. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and tension, just like I remembered. I waited until she went upstairs to nap before I snuck into her bedroom. My hands were shaking. My stomach was tight. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I found it anyway. Tucked beneath scarves in her old velvet jewelry box, a letter, folded in thirds. Yellowed with time, addressed to Lorraine Callahan, confidential. I recognized the handwriting. It wasn't my father's. I opened it and read the first line. I'm sorry for what happened that night. I never meant to hurt you. My breath caught. The name signed at the bottom, Gerald Donovan, my father's older brother, my uncle. I sat on the floor, heart pounding, hands numb. The letter continued. If I could go back to that night after the party, I would. I was drunk. I was grieving. We were both lost, but I never meant for that to happen. If Claire really is mine, I'll support her however you need. But you and Donald made it clear she's better off thinking he's her father. I won't interfere. Just don't punish her for something that wasn't her fault. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Uncle Gerald, the one who never made eye contact, the one who always changed the subject when I spoke, the one who sent me a Christmas card once, then never again. He was my biological father, and suddenly everything made cruel sense. Why my father, Donald, was cold but never outright hateful. Why my mother avoided touch, affection, connection. Why the entire family walked around me like I was radioactive. Because I was a secret they all carried, and my existence was the result of something no one had the courage to confront. I put the letter back where I found it, drove home without speaking a word. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream. I just stared at my own face in the mirror, trying to figure out who I was. Not Claire Donovan, not her problem, not the burden, but something in between. And then I made a decision. If they wanted me to carry their shame, they'd have to hear my truth first. So I sent the DNA test to every family member I had. And the letter? I mailed a copy to Uncle Gerald with a sticky note that said, "You owe me more than silence." It took exactly 9 hours for the family group chat to explode. Cousins, aunts, even grandma, who hadn't texted in 2 years. Most of them didn't believe it at first. Some were furious I went digging. One even said, "It's not your business to reopen the past." But then Uncle Gerald responded, just 2 words, "It's true." And just like that, the silence I'd been buried under for 24 years cracked open like thunder. He called me that night. I let it ring. Then I picked up. His voice was trembling. "Claire, I never knew what to say. I was ashamed. I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't even know if..." I cut him off. "You don't have to be anything, but don't pretend this didn't break something in me." There was a pause. "I'm sorry. For everything. For the pain. For your mother. For what you've carried." He offered to meet, to talk. I told him maybe, but I wasn't ready yet. My mother? She didn't call, but she sent a text 3 days later. It said, "You've ruined everything." And for once in my life, I didn't reply. Because I hadn't ruined anything. I had only revealed it. Exposed what they tried to bury under decades of guilt, silence, and shame. I moved cities, started therapy, legally changed my last name, and slowly, painfully, I began to live as myself, no longer someone's secret, no longer someone's shame. You see, they spent years calling me her problem, but the truth, I was never the problem. I was just the proof of what they did, the proof of what they hid. And now, I'm the voice that tells that story out loud, so that no other child ever grows up thinking they have to apologize for simply existing.